Hello, and welcome back to our Mayor's Updates. It's been some time since we've had these programs together. Going from the weekly to the monthly has definitely been an adjustment. Programs like these have been off and on for a little over the past decade here in Gardner. It started off when former Mayor Hawk was doing these updates on a quarterly basis. He'd call them the updates from the corner office. When acting Mayor Kaczynskis became mayor, she was doing these from her cell phone in the mayor's office from her desk, just to give updates on how things were going during the COVID-19 pandemic and all the new guidance that came out. And that's how we started with the Mayor's weekly updates before. And while we're transitioning to the monthly now on a trial basis just to see how things go now, I want to thank everyone who's reached out with their feedback on, yeah, you like the longer programming for the monthly program. Or, no, I really prefer the weekly updates. That feedback is something that I really appreciate, and it really helps us make the decisions there too. So while we're going through the trial period of having these on a monthly basis, please continue to still reach out and let us know how you like these videos, and if there's anything too that you also want to see brought up in these videos. These information, just like we used to say before every weekly update when they were there, it's to help share all of the important news that's happening so you can share that with your friends, family, relatives, and anyone else you think might find this information helpful over the course of the coming week. And while it's the course of the coming month now, the information is still very relevant there too. So I welcome all of your feedback, and actually I'm hoping to get some just to see how things are going. But we have a lot to go through today. Now that we are on more of a monthly format with these updates, there's a lot more meat on the bones here that we're going to get through. We'll still have some event updates. We'll still have some things that are coming up to keep an eye on your calendar, but also dive deeper into some of the stuff that's actually happening behind the scenes at City Hall, so you can see what we're doing for you each and every day over at 95 Pleasant Street. No secret to anyone that if you look outside, the weather certainly looks a little different than when we had our last update at the beginning of January, right before the State of the City address. We've had a lot of snow since then. I want to thank the members of our DPW for the diligent work that you've done in plowing the streets, making things clear. We did have some issues with a couple of the sidewalk tractors, so we thank you all for your patience when the sidewalks were getting done. Additionally, crews are trying to avoid doing the downtown sidewalks on overtime. That's why we had that daytime parking ban earlier, but it was just harder to do with traffic happening on Main Street, so we were able to do an overnight snow clearing over in the downtown area. That is something we do as a courtesy to the downtown business owners. Actually, the city's ordinance code, so the city's law book, states that all the business owners in the downtown business district are in charge of shoveling the snow of at least 36 inches in front of their buildings that they own downtown, 36 inches in order to comply with the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA requirements that's there. So we help them out because there's only so many places you can put the snow. And when you had as much snow as we had, as quickly as we had, and the fluctuating temperatures that we had too, it really made for the, no pun intended, perfect storm, in that the snow was melting and then refreezing and melting and refreezing, and finally in the end we basically just had giant ice cubes on the edges of the sidewalks, so we needed the DPW to come in and remove those. But I want to thank the downtown businesses for their patience in this. I want to thank the business members who helped us get the word out to the other members of the business community to make sure that they knew what was going on and how the processes were going to work. In particular, I'd like to thank Rebecca Morois from the Greater Gardner Chamber of Commerce and Ann LeBlanc from John Sports Shop for your help in spreading the word out there to make sure we got to everyone as quickly as we could. But thank you to everyone for your patience. There has been some questions on if Gardner is affected by the salt shortage that we have right now. Our salt supply is in good supply. It is something that we do have sufficient salt there too. It is something too that if we do run low, we actually have agreements with our area communities to share with each other. And that's happened in the past. There were times just a couple of years ago where Gardner got low on salt and we borrowed some from Leominster. And that's something that a lot of communities have. In fact, we purchase our salt on a collaborative. It's called the Oxford Collaborative because the town of Oxford is the one who takes the lead on it, but there's about 23 to 28, depending on the year, communities that all buy salt together for their roads. That way we get a cheaper price that way. So we are all set for right now. Our new salt shed should be fully constructed next year. This was our last year with the current salt shed, so we'll be able to have a lot more on hand and not even have to worry about that at all. But for now, we are okay. We have gotten a couple questions about that out in front, so just wanted to make sure that we address those here on the program. The last issue related to the DPW and snow that we've gotten questions on is the public sand pile that's at the DPW. For those of you who may not know, at the DPW garage, over on West Broadway, we have a pile of sand in the front that residents can come fill up a bucket for and use that for your own residence to put on, your walkway, your steps, or things like that. There were some issues a couple storms ago The fact that we have to say a couple storms ago is really saying something about how the month has been. That the sand pile was empty. And what we've seen is that there's a lot of contractors who are driving up and filling the beds of their pickup trucks. We've seen people from other communities come. That sand pile there is meant for Gardner residents. That's why the signs are there to say, please no contracting trucks, please no more than a couple buckets. The actual quantities are listed on those signs that are there too. So please be respectful of that. We want to make sure people actually get the benefit for their residences, that they can utilize that to make sure they don't slip on the ice at their own property, on their driveways, on their walkways, on their steps, or whatever that is. So the DPW asked us to put a quick reminder about that in this update as well. The fire department wants to remind everyone that if you live near a fire hydrant, please shovel that out so that if there ever is an instance of emergency, the firefighters can get to that hydrant as quickly and effectively as possible when there's mere seconds that count anytime that there's a fire involved, making sure that you don't have to worry about clearing the snow out of the way in order to hook the hose onto the hydrant. So if you do live near a hydrant, please take the time to shovel around that if you are able to. Spring is on the way. Just a reminder that on Sunday, March 9th at 2 a.m., that's when it's time to change the clocks in spring forward for daylight savings time. The fire department also wants us to remind everyone that when we do change the clocks for daylight savings time, that is also the time to check your batteries and your smoke detectors. So make sure that that's something you remind yourself when you change your clocks, to make sure you change the batteries and your smoke detectors. Our Gardner farmers markets were quite successful last year. I want to thank Erica Bossi, Kat Deal, Shelby, and everyone else who was involved in making the Gardner farmers market such a success last year. We had a couple thousand people come to each one of them over at Waterford Street at the community center, and several $1,000s pumped into our local farming agriculture economy as well as a result. So that is coming back this year. It's going to run from May through November, and the first iteration of the Gardner's Farmers Market this year is going to be on May 17th at 9:30 a.m. on the front lawn of our new community center at the former Waterford Street School building. While we're talking about the Waterford Street School building, I want to say a very special thank you to our Eagle Scout candidate, Ryan Sainer, who went and volunteered for his Eagle Scout project at the CAC's new location at the Waterford Street Community Center to help outfit their storefront. The CAC took the front office of the former Waterford School building and made that their front desk, if you will, for the services that they provide to the public. They basically took down all of the shelving that was in the old library of the Waterford Street School building and made that their wall panels over there. And if you haven't seen it yet on Facebook, it looks gorgeous. We expect that the community center is going to be open to the public sometime later this year, so make sure you go check it out. But I do want to say a special thank you to Ryan Sainer and all of the Boy Scouts who worked to help him with his Eagle project there. That's going to be a huge benefit to the community. There's clothing there, there's personal care items, there's hygiene items, there's food, eventually going in there for the food pantry, and all the other programs that the CAC puts on every year through their backpack program, their congregate meal care, their fuel assistance programs, and everything else. They really are a true treasure for us to have here in the community. So thank you very much to Julie Meehan and her staff for continuing to be the asset that you are for us here in Gardner. And to Ryan Sainer, thank you very much for recognizing that in the work that you're doing here in the community as well. A couple of reminders from our tax collector's office. First is that from our city clerk's office first is that dog licenses are due by March 31st. That is something that by state law you are required to register your dog with the city every year. We do get vet certificates directly, rabies certificates directly from the veterinarians who are in the city of Gardner this year. So the list is checked to see who doesn't renew their dog license each year from the vet certificates that we get from rabies vaccines, or from the people who registered a dog last year and didn't reach out to tell us that they either no longer have the dog is deceased, the dog is with a new owner, or the person has moved. That's the other big way that you can get a violation for not licensing your dog, is not telling the city clerk's office that you've moved and you don't have the dog within Gardner anymore. So make sure you avoid any of those by either letting the city clerk's office know that you either no longer live in Gardner, you no longer have the dog, or register your dog. That way, we make sure we avoid issuing any tickets. And as a reminder, a couple years ago, Councillor Darnell-Lowitz and I were able to propose a ordinance change to the City Council that they unanimously adopted, that if you are over the age of 70, while you still have to register your dog, you don't have to pay the fee to register your dog anymore, as your dog is your companion at that point. At least under the state law that allows us to do that. So make sure you are registering your dog, and just know that if you are over the age of 70, you don't have to pay for that registration. A reminder from our tax collector's office that our excise tax bills for the city are were already mailed out on February 3rd, and they are due on March 5th next week. So if you have not received your bill, please contact the Treasurer Collector's Office. We get an issue with this every now and then, and it's not too often that it happens, but we want to make sure that we can avoid it if we can. People claim that either they've moved and they didn't have a forwarding address on their previous location, or because these bills are only mailed out on an annual basis, that if you have forwarding address, sometimes that's only for 6 months at a time, so by the time that forwarding's done, you don't get your excise bill. The way the law is written here in Massachusetts is it's up to the responsibility of the owner of the vehicle to make sure that they get their excise tax bill. And it's your responsibility to remember that you have that bill to pay around this time every year. It is something that's strange, and that's, it's something that we only pay once a year. You can forget that it exists even. So we want to make sure that people know that excise tax bills are due next week, and to avoid any late fee, any penalty, any issues or anything like that, make sure, one, you received it, and if you haven't, please call the Treasurer Collector's Office at the following phone number, 978-630-4008. Again, that's 978-630-4008. Or you can stop by City Hall at any time during normal business hours and pay those at the tax collector's office, or you can drop it off in a sealed envelope in our City Hall drop box out in front of City Hall as well after hours. That box is locked and checked every day, but make sure that you get that on your calendar. If you haven't received it yet, one, make sure that you reach out to the Treasurer Collector's Office so that you can get what the bill you have to pay is, so you don't have any fines and penalties and late fees with it, but also that you get your address corrected in the system that way too. One of the events that we have every year that tends to be very popular with the community is our annual Health and Wellness Fair put on by the Gardner Community Action Team. The Greater Gardner Health and Wellness Fair is going to take place on April 24th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in Perry Auditorium. This normally has several dozens of vendors come out in Perry Auditorium. I want to thank our prevention coordinator, Veronica Patty, for getting all of these vendors together. And it really is a way to showcase all of the providers and services that we have in the Greater Gardner area. There's everything there from local doctors' offices to food insecurity nonprofits to advocates for health issues that are facing the community. The domestic violence task force is there. I can't name them all, otherwise we'd be here for another month and it'd be time for the next Mayor's Monthly Update. But there's a lot of great resources that are right here in our backyard, and we're very blessed to live in a place that has so much to offer to the community that's there. However, that said, sometimes there's so many resources out here, it's sometimes easy to forget that we have these resources out here, or confusing to figure out which resource is the one that could be helping you at that particular time. And that's what events like this are meant to show. It's to help to showcase everyone who we have here in the community that's here willing to help, so that you know what you have right here in your backyard. So if you ever need those services, you know, one, how to find them, where to contact them, and you've already got a face to the name. So make sure you do put that on your calendar for April 24th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Perry Auditorium. Another very popular event that we have every year in the city is the annual Light the Town Purple campaign. Even though Gardner is a city, the Relay for Life of Greater Gardner has a campaign called Light the Town Purple, where they go to Gardner and the surrounding communities in the Tri-City area and light the respective city and town halls purple, leading up to our big finale at the Relay for Life in June over at Mount Wachusett Community College's track. Light the Town Purple here in Gardner is the first of those events to kick off the push to the relay and the final countdown to the relay, and that will take place on Tuesday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. on the front steps of Gardner City Hall. I want to thank Cheryl Bossy and the Relay for Life Planning Committee for putting this event on each and every year. There are so many people who grew up with the Relay for Life here in Gardner, and in fact, for a while we had the largest relay in New England, one of the largest in the country, and one of the largest in the world at one point in time. The Relay for Life is really something that's been a staple here. To put it into perspective, the first Relay for Life in Gardner happened 3 months before I was born. And it's been something that, you know, people look forward to here in Gardner and put out there. And cancer is something that really has affected most, if not everybody here in Gardner, the North Central Mass area, and quite frankly, in any other demographic range that you want to put that into, be it either through the person themselves, a family member, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, anything like that. And these events like this are to show that there's hope And there's people who are working and fighting to make a difference and working towards a cure for cancer and working to supporting the research that's out there. So thank you to everyone who's involved in planning this very successful event each and every year. I've yet to hear back from Mayor Mazzarella and Mayor Squalia if we're doing the Tri-City Challenge this year as to which city can get the most people registered for the relay as we've done in years past. If you remember the last time we did it, Gardner won on the contest, and Mayor Mazzarella and Mayor Squalia had to go around the track wearing their Gardner orange instead of me having to wear either the Leominster blue or the Fitchburg red. So I'm hoping to keep that trend going this year, but we'll talk about that closer as we get to June for the Relay for Life itself. This past week, the city declared and recognized through a proclamation in partnership with the Gardner Domestic Violence Task Force that the month of February is nationally recognized as Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. We had an assembly over at Gardner High School where we worked with the Gardner Domestic Violence Coordinator Danielle Drew, as well as the Domestic Violence Awareness Task Force that we have here in Gardner and the Voices of Truth organization to make sure that students know that in today's lingo, a toxic relationship is not a healthy relationship, and seeing what the warning signs are, because domestic violence isn't something that only people experience in their adult life. It's something that the moment that people start dating each other, it's something to keep an eye out. So I want to say thank you very much to Bernice Richard for making sure that that happens here in Gardner, making sure that the awareness gets spread, and thank you to Paula Bulger, principal of Gardner High School, Danielle Drew, the Gardner Community Action Team, and everyone who was involved in making that presentation for our students possible. And thank you to Councillor Judy Mack for going to read the proclamation for the students as well. We have a couple of new businesses that have opened here in Gardner. Tata's Fonda, several people may remember that from the old food truck that used to be on Vernon Street behind the old Gardner News Building, has their own storefront now. Located over on Main Street, across the street from Fidelity Bank, is Tata's Fonda. This is authentic Creole food with a Puerto Rican style to it. I recommend the rice and pernil if you're going to go, with a side of tostadas, but get what you want there. They've got plenty of stuff on the menu there that you can get. It's really great. So congratulations to Ruth and Carlos and everyone involved. It's at the side of the former Crown Chicken location. And before that, it was the Herbalife stores that were there. So it's great to see a restaurant going in and fitting out the space and making it so that we don't have a vacant storefront right now in the downtown. Additionally, we also want to welcome Artisans and More, our new artist co-op that opened in the former Shower Glass location. Game nights also used to be in that location as well. This is a art co-op where artists can go and show off their wares. It's really something that's very exciting. They have their opening day on March 1st. So it's great to see them opening up in downtown Gardner. Those are, our first two locations in 2025 that we're having open here in Gardner. It's great to see our business community growing and expanding. Back in 2022, Gardner, through the administration that we have at City Hall, established 2 vacant storefront revitalization districts. At the time, what that meant was we were trying to incentivize people to come into our vacant storefronts that had been vacant for a period of more than 12 months to try to see if we can get new businesses to come into there. At the time, there were over 40 vacant storefronts in the downtown area and around 16 in the South Gardner, Timpani Boulevard corridor. Today, we're down to 10 in downtown and 2 over in the Timpani Boulevard corridor. So we've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot for us left to do. So thank you very much to all of our businesses who have opened in the past couple of years here in Gardner and invested in our communities right here in our backyard. As always, we try to highlight what's going on at the theater at the Mount. Over at Mount Wachusett Community College, there'll be a showing of Into the Woods. Based on fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm, Into the Woods brings together a story of a baker and his wife who wished for a child, of Cinderella who wishes to go to the King's Festival, of Jack who wishes to keep his best friend, of a witch who wishes to be beautiful again, and many other fairy tales come together. It all comes together in Into the Woods, where people will have to consider if they truly want what they actually wished for, and be careful what wish you make. That'll take place on March 1st at 7:30 p.m. and March 2nd at 2 p.m. Tickets are available for Friday's show on the Theater at the Mount's website that can be found through Mount Wachusett Community College's main website. The library is happy to present the Celtic Songs with Jeff Snow on Wednesday, March 12th at 6:30 p.m. The softer side of Celtic is what he's calling the show. Jeff will combine music, stories, I love your wording, Rachel, and a wee bit of history from Scotland, Ireland, and England for an enjoyable evening performance over at the library. And then the Gardner Museum will be reopening again on March 5th, so you can check out their website for the information on their upcoming exhibits, but they're closing their winter break and reopening again fully on March 5th. Thank you very much to Mary and Noel and everyone over at the Gardner Museum for your continued work in showing the city's history and showcasing how far we've come as a community since we were first founded in 1785 and beyond. A couple of updates on some things happening in City Hall and around the downtown area. First of all, I want to thank publicly Tony Molina of Molina Realty. He is the owner of the former Gardner News building right in the central square in downtown. He has converted the interior of the building completely. There are about 16, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's ballpark 16 new market rate apartments that are going to be going online on April 1st. These are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and I'm told the rent will include utilities and all internet costs in it as well, to try to make it as easy for people who are there. There is full parking in the back, but it's great to see one of our historic buildings saved and converted into a new way here too. A lot of people have been saying, you know, there's a lot of apartments coming into the area, and that is true. But there's a lot of housing needs that we have right now. To put this into perspective, I said during my State of the City address that in the last 15 years, Gardner's population has grown by about 5%, or about 1,100 residents. During the same time frame, the number of homes annually on the market have gone down by about 21%. We're seeing a huge shift in population growth, with people coming from the greater Boston area, where you can buy a house with some land here in Gardner for what you can buy a brick for out in the greater Boston area. And people are coming up from Worcester, people are coming from Boston, people are coming from Brookline, Cambridge, where there's just overcrowding already, and coming out to here where there's a lower cost of living, a lower cost of housing prices. But what it's doing right now is it's a simple supply and demand economics 101 lesson, where the demand has skyrocketed in some cases, and the supply has either remained stagnant or in some cases even decreased. So housing is going to be one of the bigger things that we're looking into this year, to seeing how we can increase our housing stock, cut back on the red tape for housing development and business growth in the area too, because you have to be able to support the population that moves here too. So we are taking care of that on our end, but quite frankly, having a larger population base in the downtown and really focusing on populating the downtown area only helps the business community by keeping people within walking distance of the businesses that they shop at too. So I want to say thank you very much to Tony Molina and Molina Realty for the work you've done, not just at the Gardner News location, but also at the Diamond Hearts Art Studio location at the former Wheel and Supply storefront building next to O'Neill's Bike Shop. Diamond Hearts Art Studio, if you haven't been there, is a tremendous art studio. They had an open mic night a couple nights ago. They're a pour paint location right in the heart of our downtown, where they offer art classes. They allow artists to display and sell their art in there. The open mic nights are fun. When they have different artists come and sing and perform. People can enjoy their time there. But it's also a very unique building too, in that the art studio is on the first floor. The owners of the art studio are in the basement level apartment, and there's 5 apartments above the art studio. When those 5 apartments went live, Tony Molina received 427 applications for those 5 apartments. So the demand, again, that's just another example of the demand that's there. I saw it with my own house. I finally got my house on offer 39 over a 2-year period, where just the offers kept going above, and then beyond asking price on top of that too. So that is one of the reasons why we are looking for housing in Gardner, but also celebrating the accomplishments we make along the way. 94 Pleasant Street, which has been the bane of some of the city's headaches for several years, has finally sold. The 94 Pleasant Street is the green triple-decker across the street from the front steps of Gardner City Hall. This is a landmark in some cases, if you will, in Gardner, in that it was the longest land court case in Massachusetts history up until the city decided to take the property by eminent domain in 2022. The former owner had back taxes totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, but fit every legal loophole that was available to them at the time until the city finally took the property. We will put the property out for a RFP sale, which the city is required to do. If you're unfamiliar with that process, that means that the city is required to advertise the property for a period of at least 30 days on several different avenues, from a local newspaper to the state's website to the city's website and beyond. There's several different places that we have to advertise properties when we sell them for that 30-day period. And then we receive 2 different documents from the individuals looking to purchase those properties. We receive a technical proposal, is what it's called, and a price proposal. I then appoint a committee of at least 3 individuals who then review all of those proposals that are received, only the technical proposals, not the price proposals. The technical proposals tell the city what you plan on doing with the property, what the potential design is, how that is going to be feasible, how you have the financial backing for what you're trying to do, and why you think that is the best fit for the property, among other things that could be thrown in there too. The committee then reviews all of the proposals that are received on the technical basis only and grades those on a common rubric that's put out with the property solicitation that goes out to the public for people who want to bid on the property. Those rubrics are then returned to my office and then combined into one document that does a final grading on who should receive the property, only on a technical basis. Only after that technical review and grading is done do we open the price proposals on the property. And now what Mass General Law says then next is we rank the properties by highest bid to lowest bid. But the technical proposal and the technical review, the reason why that's done first is that actually outweighs the price proposals that we receive for those properties as well. Because if someone has the best and highest use of a property, even if there's a higher bid for something else, if that doesn't have the best and highest use for the property, for what the city sees as the vision for that property, then we go with what the technical better option is than the price better option is. And we just have to be able to document in a one-page document that goes to the Inspector General's office, if requested or maintained here on the city's file, why we didn't go with the highest bid if the technical property proposal had a better option for the city in the long run. So we sell all of our properties that way here in Gardner. That's required by law, that's required by the state, it's enforced by the Inspector General's office and the Attorney General's office. So nothing's going out willy-nilly, everything's got a check and balances with it. So we did that with 94 Pleasant Street. Matthias Properties is the person who purchased that property that's there. I expect some work to be done on the building sometime within the May to June timeframe that's there. At least seeing some of the siding come down and the building being worked on. The plan for the property is quite impressive, but we'll talk a little bit more as that work begins over there and Matthias finalizes their final thoughts on what to do with the property that's there. But the proposal looked pretty great, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll talk about that more in the summertime, but just wanted to give you all a sneak peek and let you know that that property has sold and is in the hands of Matthias Properties. Gardner was recently highlighted on Channel 5 News as one of the 4 communities out of the 351 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have fully spent the funding that we've received from the opioid settlement. For those of you who may not remember when we had the press conference on that back in 2022, the former Attorney General Maura Healey, now Governor Maura Healey, when she was serving as Attorney General for the Commonwealth, entered a nationwide lawsuit against opioid manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. That case was settled in 2022, and every city and town in Massachusetts is receiving some form of payment from those distributors, retailers, and manufacturers of opioid drugs in the prescription realm for the work that they played either directly or indirectly in the promulgation of the opioid epidemic. Whether they intended to or not, there were some loopholes that everyone was able to find, and that's how we got to where we were with the opioid epidemic. So the funding that we are receiving is based on population size and based on how much money cities and towns were spending already in combating the opioid epidemic. And Gardner's always had a strong background where we've done everything we can to make sure we're there for people who are struggling with the disease of addiction. To be one of 4 communities statewide that has spent and obligated all of the funding that we have yet received is a testament to our commitment that we have to all of those who are in recovery, all of those struggling with the disease of addiction, all of those who lost someone to an opioid overdose, that we're there with you. And we're here as a community to stand with each other and lift each other up along the way, no matter what tragedies strike, and make sure that we can be there for each other. What Gardner has done was, when the funding was announced, and we're receiving this funding every year from now until 2032, I called up Rep. Slotnick and asked if he could set up a meeting with our regional partners in Templeton, Westminster, Winchendon, and Gardner. We had a joint meeting now, and we're pooling our funding together, and we're partnering with Gamma and we've hired a recovery support navigator. This is a bachelor's degree level clinician whose job it is to basically make a custom recovery plan for individuals who our police departments receive 911 calls for overdose-related incidents. This person then follows up and meets with the individuals who were going through those events and works and sits down with them and reviews a full assessment of that person. What is their current health style? What brought them to their addiction and what started them on that path? What's their family setting like? What's their housing situation like? Are they suffering from food insecurity? And basically, it's that person's job to say, these are the organizations that you can reach out to, and this is how they can help you, and this is your customized recovery plan. As we said earlier, it's great that there's so many resources available here in the North Central Massachusetts and Greater Gardner area, but when you're going through an already stressful situation like recovering from an overdose, dealing with a 911 incident, or just trying to go through recovery, you don't want to add the stress of figuring out who is it the person I need to call right now at the same time. So it's this person's job to help guide you down that path and help find that and alleviate those concerns from you there too. So it was great to see Gardner highlighted in that way and being one of the leaders in the Commonwealth in combating the opioid epidemic. You have my commitment that at least as long as I'm here as mayor, and I'm sure long after that, Gardner will be doing everything we can to make sure that we're there with all of our community members who are dealing with the opioid epidemic and making sure that every number that we remember at our overdose awareness vigil every year, that there's a person behind that number and a family member and a friend behind that number, and we're doing everything we can to curb the effects of that epidemic and be there for everyone each and every step along the way. And now for a couple of fun announcements at the end. First of all, I want to thank my fellow mayors from around the Commonwealth. At the end of January, I was elected as the president of the Massachusetts Mayors Association. That is a group made up of the 48 mayors from around the Commonwealth that advocate for the cities of Massachusetts with the governor and the state legislature on Beacon Hill, down in Washington, and really working with the Massachusetts Municipal Association to see what is impacting cities in the different bills and policy discussions and everything else that's being debated in the capitals, and how that impacts us directly. So I want to thank my fellow mayors. How is this good for Gardner is that it gets a lot of attention with those policymakers. In bringing the perspective of a mid-sized city to those conversations, it helps get that perspective away from just the main population centers and puts it more on a broader viewpoint and takes the silos away and brings our perspective to the table at Beacon Hill. So I want to thank my fellow mayors for that vote of confidence for the upcoming year. And as things come up along the way, I'll be sure to share those through the updates that we have here too as well, just so you're aware of the things going on and how Gardner relates to some of the other communities from around the Commonwealth. We also had a little bit of an anomaly with the new school building project in that it came in about $8.5 million under budget. And talking to a couple of my other mayors at our meetings, that's not really something we hear too often. But we were able to, thanks to the financial oversight of the new school building committee, the process laid out by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and additional funding received by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which is coming as a grant from the state, we were able to bring in the new school project just about $8.5 million under budget. And working with our bond counsel. Now, those are the lawyers that every city and town is required to have by law, that every time we go out for a loan, they approve how that loan is being spent. There are laws that say if you take a loan out for paving, it can only be a 10-year loan. If you take a loan out for anything to do with outdoor recreational facilities, that can only be a 15-year loan. And if you take a loan out for anything equipment related, that can only be a 20-year loan. And the reason for that is that the state's law says that that's the usual time that type of item or that type of project lasts before it needs to be replaced. The loan that we took out for the new school project was a 30-year loan. So working with the lawyers who oversee our bonding for the city, working with the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, it was determined that we could reassign those funds to different other 30-year capital improvement projects, which is basically just building upgrades when you get down to the list of it, to make difference in the city. When we asked about putting the funding back into the principal of the loan, because we did take out the $90 million loan that was approved or that was required to be taken out by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, when that happened, it was for a 30-year time frame. So we had to have an engineer sign off and stamp that it was a minimum 30 years that all of these projects were available. So keep an eye out in a couple of these updates, but also as the snow gets away and the weather gets warmer, we're going to talk a lot more about what those projects are, what the impact of those projects is going to be. A lot of the work is at the community center in Gardner City Hall, but also over on Rear Main Street. A lot in our schools, a complete renovation of Landry Auditorium over at Gardner High School that's already underway. Getting that finished up there, new locker rooms at the high school, a new entranceway for the Gardner Middle School, a new roof for the Gardner Middle School. A lot of the stuff that's been put on the back burner for a while is now getting done. When we asked about putting the loan money back into the principal of the loan and seeing if we could just use it to pay the loan off a little earlier, the discussion that we received back was you're taking basically a 30-year loan and making it a 29-year loan. When you add interest and principal payments and everything like that over the course of that many years, it adds up to just about that much. So if we're going to be carrying the payments for this loan on the city's books for that time anyway, might as well use it for something that's going to benefit us right here, right now, and benefit us in the long term too. So it's not just us right here, right now, but also the people who move into the city and the next generation and that after that over the course of the next coming 30 years. And really projects that really do have a benefit that's going to benefit people in the city from now until 2052 when the loan is paid off. So you really have to take the long-term vision with that and not just the short-term with it. So that's why the loan was reallocated the way it was, and I'm excited to see those projects moving forward. And probably one of my most fun things to talk about each and every year is the Williams-Rockwell Educational Gift Fund grants that were awarded. The Williams-Rockwell trustees met earlier this month, to vote on the proposals that were received. There'll be a full list available on the city's website, but there's a lot of great things happening in the school department because of the work that was done through this grant program. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Williams-Rockwell Educational Gift Foundation, back in the 1950s, Gardner High School had a principal, Mr. Williams, who, when they were looking for a senior class gift for the school, went to visit Norman Rockwell's art studio and asked if he had something he'd be willing to donate to Gardner High School. And he donated a painting called Willie Gillis and Convoy. Now, my father remembers seeing that on the hallways of Gardner High School, and several people who we've talked to have always like, yeah, I walk by that on the way to science class every day. Well, when Rockwell painting started taking off, the decision was made at the time that we did not have the resources in Gardner to best protect an original Norman Rockwell painting on the halls of the high school, so it was crated and put away. And in the 2017-2016 timeframe, then Mayor Hawk made the decision to sell the painting at auction and endow the proceeds of the sale into a account where the interest and the gains of the sale, or the gains that the account had based on its market performance, because it is an investment account, were given out as grants while the principal stays in there and continues to grow, because we can only give it up to 90% of that income every year, with the remaining 10% being put back into the principal. The painting sold for about $1.9 million. Based on what was put back into the account through this process since then, we're just about at $2.7 million in that account right now. Based on the account's performance in the stock market this year, we had just around $300,000 worth of income last year, so we could give up to just under $270,000 worth of grants for the school district this year. And in fact, when you add what was given out this year to what's been given out since 2016, we're just about $900,000 that's been given out in grants to our teachers to help enrich and engage our students in a different way outside of what we can normally fund through the school budget process. This is everything from communication boards at the elementary school's lobby and nurse's office for our students who are nonverbal. That way they can be able to communicate with the school nurses or with the school's administration staff through pictures on the board so that they can point to what's there. There's also communication boards that are being installed for our students who are bilingual, who can point to say, this is what's feeling bad at the nurse's office and something like that, so that they can still communicate if they're still going through their English language learners process and are not fully proficient in English yet. So this is allowing that one extra avenue of communication for our students who either aren't fully proficient in English yet or who are nonverbal. We have Nature's Classroom, new microphone sets for Gardner High School and Gardner Middle School, a field trip for our English language students, or formerly ESL students, who are recent to the United States, taking them to a Bravehearts game so they can see one of America's favorite pastimes. There's a field trip to see Wicked on Broadway. There's new percussion equipment at the high school and the middle school, new marching band raincoat uniforms, and several different things. There are 35 different applications that we were able to award this year because of the way that that fund has gone, and for a total of $222,101.96 on top of that too. So thank you very much to all of our teachers who submitted all of these applications. The full breakdown of how this is being spent across the district, $15,000 is going to Gardner Elementary School, around $50,000 to the middle school, $120,000 to the high school, about $5,000 to Gardner Academy, and $13,000 for students across the district, including $10,000 to supplement the funding that the city approved through the Community Development Block Grant Program that will allow us to fully waive athletic user fees for every student in Gardner Public Schools, so that no matter what a student's economic background is, they're able to participate in the program that we have here at Gardner Public Schools. Before we waived athletic user fees through both this program and the Community Development Block Grant Program in 2020, students had to pay $100 per sport per season, unless you played hockey, in which case it was $500 per season. So we've now completely removed that barrier for students so that students of any economic background can participate in our athletic programs here in Gardner. So thank you to our Rockwell trustees. Thank you to our teachers for the work that you do each and every day. I look forward to seeing how great the projects that were approved in this year's round of grant funding are able to make our students' experience better so they have a good memory of their time here as a student here in Gardner. Now, new to these programs, because we're only doing these once a month, and yeah, they're a little longer now because there's a lot more for us to talk about, but we want to make sure, like I said, you know what's happening here in City Hall. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back with a special guest here. We're going to try to get a guest from City Hall as often as we can on these updates, and we've got that coming up for you right now. Stay tuned. So part of understanding what's happening here in City Hall for each and you every day is knowing the faces that are behind City Hall that are working for you each and every day. So I wanted to introduce you to our brand new Community Development and Planning Director, Jason Stevens, who started in the role at the end of January. He's done a great job here with us for just over a past month now.
Yeah, a month and a week.
And yeah, all right. So I want to make sure you all get a chance to meet him too, especially if you're not in City Hall every day. You may not have seen him around, so this is your chance to get to meet him here. So Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, thanks, Mike. As Mayor Nicholson just said, my name is Jason Stevens. I'm the new Director of Community Development and Planning here in Gardner. As he left all the fun things for the end, I'm just going to go over the city code and charter for you. No, I'm just kidding. So previously to this, I was at the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, where I worked in economic inclusion, workforce development, and community building. And I'm really glad to kind of bring those skills here to Gardner and revitalize our infrastructure, improve quality of life, and expand our economy by meeting with businesses and hopefully getting them here to grow and build in Gardner.
So if you have any suggestions on businesses that you want to see here, on programming you want to see here, events and things like that, make sure you can always reach out to my office and we'll always connect, but I want you to know who we reach out to too, so you can see the face behind the name and know who's working for you here and what's some of the projects you've started to take a look at in your month here.
So we've started with the rear downtown revitalization plan, getting that back on track, the Greenwood Pool demolition, the demolition of the 205 to 213 Main Street property, complete streets, safe streets to school. There's a lot. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of meeting with many citizens, community leaders, and business owners here. And I just want to emphasize of the open door policy that I have for my office. So if you ever find me with the door closed, I might be here right now. I apologize. I'll be back in City Hall shortly. But in moments like that, I will get back to you, and you're welcome to come to my office at any time, reach out to me at any time, and give me your feedback, because I want this to be a way that we can all collaborate together to make sure that we're building Gardner.
So it sounds like you really haven't been bored too much.
No.
Since you've been here.
The month has flown by.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you all got a chance to meet Jason. Like I said, we're going to try to have these cameos every now and then on these monthly updates while we're in, trying the monthly style here. But just like we used to do with the mayor's updates, as always, if you have any questions on anything going on in the city that you see going on, or you hear about something that's happening, always feel free to contact my office at any time. Myself and everyone who works at City Hall are always happy to talk to you and answer any questions that you have about things that are going on right in your backyard. That concludes this monthly Mayor's Update. As always, feel free to reach out at any time, and I look forward to seeing you again next month as we go through a whole other list of topics, and we'll see what faces join us for that one there too. But thank you all very much, and have a great day.